Welcome back to the Big Leagues podcast. David and Isaac here. We just had a crazy NFL free agency, ton of big deals. Wanted to give our thoughts to date, and our two favorite teams actually just had a pretty big deal. So I feel like that's the no-brainer place to start. Steelers traded Deontay Johnson and a seventh-round pick to your Panthers for Dante Jackson and a sixth-round pick. Isaac, what do you think about this deal?
Um, for me, I'm a big fan of this deal for Carolina. It came out, I believe, 3 days ago that we were actually gonna cut Dante Jackson but I guess we ended up finding a trade partner, and then basically just giving up a sixth, and we got back 7 for Deontay Johnson. I mean, when we clearly needed help at receiver, and kind of all the free agents left aren't really, alpha wide receiver ones. Not saying that Deontay Johnson is, but I think he will be our wide receiver one. So I think it's a good move. I think he's going to pair well. He's not that old, so he's got a few years left in him, I'd say. And I think it's kind of the best, like low
low risk.
Yeah, low risk.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Yeah.
I mean, because if we go T. Higgins, we're probably gonna have to give up, we don't even have a first, so probably our 2 second-round picks that we have. So, and we're gonna have to pay him an absolute bag. So I honestly, I kind of like this because, after a few of the moves we made this offseason, I think it's kind of be a retooling year. So I kind of like this move for us. What do you think of the deal?
Yeah. My first reaction, I was kind of shocked. I didn't think we got really that much value. I wasn't too impressed, but I'm talking myself into it a little bit just because Deontay Johnson's deal was up at the end of this year, and I have a feeling he probably would have walked, and I think that Tomlin and the Steelers knew that he was probably going to walk. So to address a position of need at corner, I think is a good help, and Steelers didn't want that lingering over them throughout the season. They wanted to get that done as early as possible, I'm guessing, to kind of come into the season with their full team and adjust positions of need so that come into the draft they have a clear path as to what they want to do. I think this draft class is loaded with receivers, so I think they probably have someone in mind that they think they're going to be able to hit on, and they've got a pretty good track record of hitting second-round receivers. I mean, Pickens and Juju and Claypool and some other guys that were decent. So I definitely have faith in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely got what they needed out of this deal, and I think we got it for a relatively low cost. And for Pittsburgh, I mean, Joey Porter Jr., I think he's gonna hopefully take another step up this year for you guys. And I think Dante Jackson's, even with us, he's always been pretty solid. He's really fast, so he can guard some of the quicker outside receivers. So I think Pittsburgh could use that. So even if you didn't get, maybe full value for Deontay Johnson, you still got, something worth a return instead of letting him walk.
Yeah, I think biggest key is just how that was such a position of need. I think it works out. But speaking of trades from the Panthers, your Panthers traded away Brian Burns. I have a feeling you're not too pleased with that deal.
I mean, definitely a different opinion on this deal than the Deontay Johnson one for me. He's been in trade rumors kind of the last season and a half for us. Teams are kind of giving us the Rams actually, right after we traded CMC, offered us 2 firsts and a second for Ryan Burns. We declined. And then last past season, we also had, apparently there were offers for him as well involving first-round picks. And then we go and we trade him for a second and a fifth. When I saw this news, I could not believe it. I was literally dropped me to my knees, man. Because for me, it was just, some of the deals. We gave up $150 million to 2 interior guards, and we wouldn't pay Brian Burns, and then we're gonna get such a poverty return. I just don't know how we don't get a first-round pick for him, to be honest. That, especially when we don't have one this year. So for me, I think we got scammed, and I'm pissed about that deal. No sugarcoat, and I am not happy with this deal.
Yeah, not a good look when you have 2 firsts and a second on the table, and then you move it for a ham sandwich and a bag of chips. it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, like Panthers owner might be up there for top like 5 worst owners in a major sports league. I mean, like I get that you're not in like a place to contend or whatever, but like you need to build a team full of good players, and Brian Burns a good player, and you just basically got rid of him for practically nothing. Like, I don't know, just a bad look. But what do you think of like the other moves they kind of made?
I mean, our O line was absolutely terrible. Like Bryce, really had no time to throw. Our roughs were like our running backs were getting hit like before even the line of scrimmage, basically every play. So it's very hard to run the ball and no pass protection. So we definitely needed to address it. And I mean, our new general manager took the liberty to address it. Giving out 150 million to two guards, and we're gonna change our Austin Corbett, our old guard, to center. So hopefully that will work out as well. I'm actually happy we addressed the O line, but I just wish that we could have paid Brian Burns and still brought in help for the O line, which would have been good. But I mean I think we overpaid, to be honest. Like 5 years, 100 mil for Robert Hunt. I mean he's a good guard, but paying $100 million to an inside guard instead of your star defensive player, edge rusher, just doesn't really make sense to me. I think guard's a lot easier position to address. Like you can draft a guard in the second round, but you're not gonna be able to draft a player like Ryan Burns. So that's where I run into some issues. But I like some of the moves we made. Like I said, bringing the guards, and we also brought in a linebacker from Denver, Josie Jewell. My buddy Owen, who cheers for the Broncos, was telling me he's a pretty decent player and a solid linebacker. And we lost Frankie Luvu, so he's actually gonna, hopefully fill that gap. Him and Shaq Thompson as our linebacker. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we still have another move or two in us. But if I had to give us like a rating, I'd probably say D, C minus, D plus for our off season so far. Trying to be optimistic, but fucking
Yeah,
Panthers.
I project probably another rough season for you next year as well.
Yeah.
My Steelers made a couple big moves. Um, I don't know how to feel about it yet. We'll see. They brought in Russell Wilson on a vet minimum deal. It's a good like low risk move because like since Denver bought him out, they have to pay his deal, so we can just basically have him for free. But I don't know if that's quite the answer I was looking for at first. Like I really want to draft Michael Penix, but I don't know if that's going to be the case if we got Russ and we still got Pickett. But I think Russ is like going to come in and immediately be the starter. And I've talked myself into it a little just because, like, looking at his stats last year, he wasn't really that bad. I just don't think that last year in Denver was his fault. Like, his only real, like, poor season was that year under Nathaniel Hackett. And to be honest, I'm willing to excuse anything that happens under Nathaniel Hackett. I think he's a bona fide clown, like, one of the most poverty, like, head coaches to ever grace the NFL. And I think that like under Arthur Smith's game planning as the new OC, I think like they can kind of game plan to Russ's strengths where they're gonna have a run game and they got Pickens and hopefully like another wide receiver they bring in to give them some weapons. So I think that could work out well. I mean, what were your thoughts on the Wilson deal? It's a pretty big deal.
I mean, if you're not going to draft a quarterback, I think it's a pretty solid move. Like you're really not paying him, and I think if you use kind of the money you're saving on quarterback to help build the defense and maybe restructure the offensive line, like you guys could sneak in maybe bottom wild card again, like get Tomlin his 9 wins and get out of there basically.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you let Pickett sit for a year behind Russ. Give him another look in the off season. Maybe after this year, you draft a quarterback, and I don't know. I like the move. I think I just don't think you can really start Pickett again next year and not have a different quarterback option. So I think you guys had to do something.
Yeah, we definitely had to do something. Like I did not want to see Pickett out there again, but I do think like this offseason is shaping up pretty good. So pretty good for us so far. Like some of the big holes for us we've addressed to this point. Like quarterback was a big one, corner was a big one, and interior linebacker. We just signed Patrick Queen off the Ravens.
That's a great.
I like that deal. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a good young linebacker. He was a first round pick a couple of years ago. He's only 24 years old. He's a good player. So
Yeah.
to bring in that in a position of need, coming from the Ravens, he might let us in on some intel, so we can beat them 2 times next year, hopefully. But yeah, we still got some holes on the O line. Like we cut our center. I know Jackson Powers Johnson's like a big touted center prospect in the draft that's slotted potentially around where we're picking. So maybe that would give us a center of the future. But I think if we can address the rest of those holes, like I think we could for sure be a playoff team if all goes right and Russ plays to his full potential.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys might have to bring in another pass catcher, to be honest. I know you're talking drafting receiver. So if that's your plan, I mean, good. I think it's a pretty deep receiver class. So maybe you find a gem there in the second round or third round, wherever you're planning on taking them. But I think, kind of George Pickens, Freiermuth, and Najee and Warren probably isn't enough like star power to really compete. So I think you definitely got to address probably a pass catcher in the draft, or maybe pick up one of these veteran receivers left in free agency too.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll either draft a wide receiver in the second round. If we don't go out and pick up one, I mean, like got someone like Calvin Ridley still on the market.
Yeah.
Bring in someone like that. I'd like to see that. That would be big.
Even there's guys. I mean, people like to say I'm a 2015 man, but Michael Thomas and OBJ, they're still. I mean, they're still.
I'll pass on both personally.
I don't know. I think maybe not a team like the Steelers, but a team like the Chiefs could really use one of them 2 guys, to help.
See, I don't know. Like Michael Thomas is a bit of a character, I guess, to put it nicely. So I don't know if a team like the Steelers or the Chiefs that have like a winning culture, I don't know if you want to jeopardize that with someone like Michael Thomas at this stage of his career. But I mean, football wise, I do think Chiefs would be a good fit for him. But another like pretty big move that just happened. Your boy Saquon Barkley, one of your favorite players, he signed with the Eagles. That's a interesting deal. Another player switching from a divisional rival team. What was your reaction to that?
I think it's potentially the move of the offseason to be like, I think for the Eagles, having Saquon Barkley run behind that O-line, and you already have Jalen Hurts, which is such a threat in the red zone, and you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside, and Goddard, probably a top 6 tight end in the league. Like, you're just stacked on, like, you got no holes on offense now. And I could see Saquon go back to his rookie year form and just put up like 2,000 all-purpose yards. Like, behind this O-line, like, I think the only thing that could be holding him down is, Jalen Hurts stealing his touchdowns in the red zone, to be honest. Like, I'm a big fan for the Eagles too.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm a big Saquon guy. I think he's really talented, and being stuck on the Giants, it's kind of hard to show that when you got Daniel Jones and bum O-lines. It's hard to really flourish, but going to a team like the Eagles with that run game and those weapons is going to be big. They lost Jason Kelce, which is going to hurt, but I think they're like, I don't know if they're going to address that some other way, but they got a center in their system that they drafted in the second round a couple of years ago. So we'll see if he can take a jump, and not going to be able to replace the production of Kelce perfectly, but if he can do his best approximation. The Eagles honestly are having a pretty interesting offseason. They signed Bryce Huff, the pass rusher from the Jets, to a pretty big deal, $51.5 million. So it looks like they're probably going to move on from either Hassan Reddick or Sweat.
I saw they honestly might move both of them, but I know Hassan. I believe Hassan requested a trade a while ago, so I think he's probably, at least one of them's gone. I think in my mind. I don't know. They also brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah, that's a good move.
Their secondary last year just
they needed a safety. Yeah.
Kind of their hole last year is, kind of a weakened secondary. Bradbury and Slay weren't as good as the year before. So I think bringing in just some DB and Gardner Johnson, a guy that can play, even though I think he's a rat and a dirty scumbag, I think it's a good move for them. And I think I think the Eagles are, I think bringing in Saquon brings them a lot closer to the 49ers.
I mean, I was just gonna say that like the 49ers probably their biggest rival in the NFC in terms of like contending for the championship. They brought in CMC, and you saw how big of a boost that was to their offense. So
Yeah.
if Saquon can produce a similar boost, I think that would be huge for them.
Like, I honestly think it's arguable that they have better weapons than the 49ers now. Because
Potentially.
AJ Brown's by far the best receiver on either team, I'd say. I obviously I'll give it to CMC, but I think Devontae Smith and Saquon is kind of your 2 and 3 punch is just crazy to me.
And I mean, I would say Jalen Hurts is a bigger weapon than
And
Purdy.
Purdy,
Just say what you want about.
yeah,
I don't care if you're the biggest Purdy fan in the world. You have to admit that Hurts is a bigger weapon just because of his legs.
yeah, no, I'd 100% agree. I'd honestly probably even definitely before coming into last year, I would have said Jalen Hurts like a top seven guy. Even now,
I'm I'm still big on Hurts, me personally.
yeah,
Not as
no,
good a year as I hope, but
yeah,
I think there was talk about him dealing with an injury or something. So we'll see how he bounces back.
yeah.
Another big running back on the move, Derrick Henry to the Ravens. As a guy that had Derrick Henry in fantasy a few years and grew a liking for him, it was tough to see him sign with the Ravens, and no, we'll have to play him 2 times
Yeah,
a year. But I think that's a great deal for them. Adding him with Lamar Jackson in the backfield just makes them have such a dangerous run game, and I think that really puts them in contention.
I mean, for me, like basically they replaced Gus Edwards with Derrick Henry. Like their red zone run game is just going to be unstoppable with like Lamar read option to Derrick Henry. Inside push. Like it's just going to be insane. I think it's a great move. I think that's honestly the best landing spot for Derrick Henry was Baltimore. Is kind of what I was thinking
Well,
going in.
that's been rumored for a while, just because I mean, it speaks for itself. Like,
Yeah.
just nasty.
I mean, we'll have to see how much he's coming to his 30-year-old season. We'll have to see it like how much
Yeah,
he can like. Running backs tend to get injured a lot more like deeper into their career. So
especially the Ravens ones.
yeah, so
I'm a little nervous for
yeah,
Henry's health and well-being.
they had like four running backs and 5 like out for the year last year. So hopefully the voodoo's gone now that Dobbins and Edwards are probably off the team. So we'll see. I'm definitely a fan of that move. I think that gives I think like now the Ravens are better than they were last year, and they were already pretty damn good. So
Yeah,
pretty good
I
move for me.
definitely agree with you there. And then another deal, I guess, Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, 4 year, $180 million deal. I think he's if he's not the highest paid, it's like him and Mahomes. So I mean, Kirk Cousins, good quarterback, not a great quarterback. Paying him that much is expensive, but the Falcons desperately needed a quarterback. I mean, what they had just was not cutting it. So
Yeah,
I, it's just hard to get quarterbacks like that. So yeah, you overpaid, but you didn't have much of a choice. I think in a weak division, I think they're probably the division favorites. So
yeah.
overall, I'd say it's a decent move. What do you think?
I mean, for me, they're in the Panthers division, so I'm obviously not a big fan. But I think honestly they would have been better off going with someone like Justin Fields or
Yeah,
some,
true.
someone that kind of fits their timeline. Because all due respect to the Falcons, they ain't winning nothing next year with Kirk Cousins. Like, I think it's gonna be good for Kyle Pitts and Drake London to have a good thrower of the ball, like help them with their development and help Bijan. But I just kind of think he's more of a rental for like the next 2 or 3 years. And, maybe like in a year's time, you take a chance on a guy like late first round, early second round, and let him sit behind a year for Kirk Cousins. Maybe he's your long-term plan. Cause I mean, I just don't really see the Falcons like winning a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins, to be honest. I don't know how you feel
Yeah.
about that.
No, I can't say I see that either, but it will be good to see Drake London, Kyle Pitts with a competent quarterback. I mean, another thing too, Kirk Cousins coming off that 20 ACL, getting up there in age, like we'll see if he
Yeah.
can even give you what he was giving you before, which I mean, again, good but not great. So
Yeah.
it could be a risk, especially too on like a a 4 year deal. Sorry.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how him and Aaron Rodgers both come back from their Achilles.
Yeah.
Like, both at kind of like 36. I think Kirk Cousins like 36, Aaron Rodgers like 38. Because in like the NBA, that's basically career ending at this point. But for quarterbacks, it's a little different. But hopefully they both come back good. You never want to see people like really get hurt or that. But praying downfall nonetheless.
What's another? Give me a deal that piqued your interest.
I mean, I think some interesting business was Josh Jacobs to the Packers, and then also them cutting Aaron Jones, and then Aaron Jones signing with division rival Vikings. I actually love that move by Aaron Jones. Like they kind of like spat this, he just kind of like spat right back in their face. So I like that from him.
Well, what I heard what happened was that like they signed Jacobs and then asked Aaron Jones to take a pay cut for the second consecutive year.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I want to be here, but like if you guys keep coming to me asking for pay cuts, like, and you're gonna pay another running back after what I did in the playoffs last year, like he had a crazy game against the Cowboys and a good playoff run. So I feel like you can't blame him for not taking that pay cut. I feel like that's kind of disrespectful from the Packers' point of view. But at the same time, Aaron Jones does have some injury history. Josh Jacobs, fresher back. You could argue he's a more talented back. I do think it's a good move. What about you?
I mean, I'd say it's an all right move for me. I mean, I think Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon was, maybe if they had to pay him more this offseason, maybe it's different. But I honestly think their run game was already pretty solid. And I don't think Josh Jacobs is, that I don't even think he's that much better than Aaron Jones, let alone, kind of the combination of him and Dillon. But I think, it's a slight upgrade, and he's younger. He's a lot younger than Aaron Jones, so kind of fits their timeline more. So I think it's an all right move, but I don't think it's nothing that kind of pushes the needle for the Packers to like take them to the next step for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like they had to let go David Bakhtiari, who was like a star tackle, but he hasn't really been available for them much the last few seasons. So it's not like they've really lost a whole lot there in terms of the final product on the field. But they also brought in safety Xavier McKinney from the Giants. I think that's a good deal. I like him. They lost Darnell Savage and replaced him with McKinney, who I would say is probably a bit of an upgrade. So I think that was a move. And then from like the Vikings point of view, bringing in Aaron Jones, they let Dalvin Cook go last year, and they kind of propelled Alex Madison to the starter, and his play was just fair, so they got rid of him this year. So to bring in Aaron Jones, I think that's a good piece of business for them.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think he really showed in the playoffs that he's kind of, even though he's getting older, he's still one of them guys at running back. And I think the Vikings really struggled to run the ball last year. That's kind of why they traded for Cam Akers too, like mid-season, because Madison just kind of wasn't cutting it. And I think like with all the weapons they got, on the outside with Jettas and Addison and T.J. Hawkinson, bringing in a strong run of the football like Aaron Jones, it's just going to propel that offense. So I mean, I guess they brought in Kitsy Ghost for their quarterback. So
Sam Darnold.
Who knows what that.
I mean, surely they got to draft one, right? I mean, they probably like either J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. They probably got one of them that they want to draft. Or what about them as a Fields team? I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I maybe say against that's because it's divisional.
Yeah, so that's true.
The Bears probably won't want to put Justin Fields in the division because knowing how personal he'll take that probably.
Yeah, but would they rather looking around the league, kind of running out of potential suitors. I mean, Denver needs a QB, a couple other teams, but I mean, you're kind of running out of spots. So would you rather keep Fields as a backup, or would you rather recover an asset? It's a tough trade.
I think if they're drafting Caleb, for sure they should move Fields, even if it is to Minnesota. I think Minnesota would honestly be a great fit for him.
Yeah,
but I think they're gonna probably start Darnold for the start of the season and probably draft Bo Nix or one of them guys we named and let him sit maybe. And if Darnold's not playing, maybe give the young kid the chance. And because there's so much weapons for the young quarterback coming in, it'd be a pretty good situation to be drafted into, I think.
What about going after someone like Trey Lance.
I mean, I think honestly,
I guess you would think that they would have did that last year when they needed a QB.
Yeah, but I think, did the Cowboys get him before Kirk went down? I think they did, right?
I'm not sure on the timeline there.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, like, I was a believer in Trey Lance, so I honestly think some team should give him a shot. Like, he never really got a shot. He played what?
Yeah.
Start games, 3 games.
I just think there's a reason like that Shanahan saw.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I don't think he would just threw him away if he wasn't sure that if he wasn't, like.
There must have been a reason because they invested so much into him. Like, they wouldn't just get rid of him for basically nothing. But it's just hard to when we really didn't get to see what went wrong with him. It's kind of just behind this practice. He kind of got outplayed by Purdy and Darnold. So I don't know. I think the Vikings are going to be an interesting team this year because I think their talent on offense, like their skill positions, is good enough. Is as good as anyone in the league. Honestly, they're up there for me. And I think if they get some mediocre to solid quarterback play, they could be a team that sneaks into like a weaker NFC wild card spot for me.
Yeah, their defense concerns me. I think they got a lot of holes.
Well, that was kind of for me like the last 2 seasons, but Brian Flores just gets bums to just do their job and kind of just get results for them. So maybe he keeps that going this year, maybe not. We'll have to see. Just to touch a little more on Fields, because honestly, it's been pretty interesting what's been going on with him this offseason. Kind of a lot of teams were taking flyers on him, when Bears kind of made it known that he's available, and then all the teams kind of went with veterans or are kind of looking to get younger guys in the draft. So what are you thinking about Fields? Where things a good spot?
Yeah, so I know at one point Schefter came out and said Tomlin's a big Fields guy, and I kind of okay, maybe Fields to the Steelers, and then that they obviously brought in Russ, so that never really happened, and then there's talks about Fields to the Raiders, that kind of fell through. I'll probably gonna get to that a little bit later, but I mean, it just seems like teams are kind of running out of the Bears are kind of running out of teams to deal them to. Most teams have their QB. The Falcons were the big one that I guess I should have mentioned even before the Steelers, but they've been linked to Fields this whole time. They brought in Kirk. I mean, most of the teams that have QB vacancies, they kind of got a plan. The Commanders, you think are probably going to draft one. Patriots probably going to draft one. I would say Broncos probably going to draft one. I don't know. It's tough to say. I think the Vikings, I think for me would have to be a prime contender. What about a team like the Titans?
I feel like they want to give Levis a year.
Probably I think it's a shot. Yeah.
I think he did enough that they want to try him out, and I think Malik Willis was also the second highest drafted quarterback, and I'm not fully sure that I think they got 2 kind of young quarterbacks that they're gonna. No point to bring in really a third guy there for me.
Got any other potential sleepers maybe? Saints? Rams?
I mean, there's not many options really that some answer at the quarterback position. I mean, Vikings is honestly, but the thing is, it's just divisional there. That'd be kind of a prime suitor for me. I don't understand why the Raiders don't.
Yeah, it should be the Raiders.
Because honestly, if you bring him in, you have you had Jacobs, you have Devontae, Jacobs gone obviously, but you have Devontae Adams. You bring in a quarterback, you can get you got Jacoby Myers. You got Max Kurt. You have players that can make big plays, but when you have Jimmy G and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, you're not winning you're not doing nothing.
I got a bit of a crazy idea. I want to see what you think about this. Okay. So, what if the Bears draft Caleb Williams, keep Justin Fields as a backup, and use him with his legs and his throwing ability, just as a weapon, almost like a Taysom Hill type?
I mean, it'd be interesting, honestly. It definitely.
I think you could get some some big plays with that. Like just bring him in as like a specialist to be like a run pass option kind of guy. I think he could definitely like have some crazy plays.
Yeah, I just don't think Justin Fields is really gonna wanna do that, to be honest. Like I think he wants a shot at quarterback, and I think the Bears would rather probably, even though I like honestly like the idea sounds good, and it'd probably be with Justin Fields, like teams would be so scared of him run the ball, like he could bomb you over the top, like coming out of the backfield, and like I'm a big Justin Fields guy. Like I wanted the Panthers to draft him the year he came out of the draft. We passed on him, but like I'm just wondering kind of what the Bears are asking for him, like why everyone kind of to me, he's looked the last 2 years, he hasn't looked that bad. Like he's been pretty, like he's Lamar Jackson-esque with his legs, and he has flashes of having a good arm. So you just think that's the type of guy, a team. If the Collins like a second round or a third round pick, you think one of these teams like with pretty mediocre quarterback play would probably send one of them picks for him. But maybe the Bears are just asking for a huge return or something. Must be.
What about the Patriots draft Marvin Harrison and trade for Fields?
I think that'd be honestly a great decision by the Page. Honestly, if I'm any team that doesn't have the first overall pick, I'm taking Marvin Harrison with I honestly think you're getting probably a top 5 receiver, like future.
Yeah.
I think he's that good. Like I just think it's hard to just pass like the Bengals didn't pass on Jamar Chase.
It's such a sure thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you take Drake May, you take Jaden Daniels. Yeah, they could be top 8 quarterback in the NFL. They could be in the USFL in 2 years' time. Like it's just such a roll the dice. Whereas I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the safest prospect I've ever seen.
Like, would you
at the
rather
position
draft Justin Jefferson and bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, or have like trying to think of a elite quarterback that doesn't really have any weapons, but like what would you rather have? Kind of like Herbert with no weapons, or
I just think the way it's like you might not get like it could be a bust. It could be a Zach Wilson. It could be a Sam Darnold. Go on down the list. Like it's definitely not a sure thing picking a QB that high. Whereas like I mean, all the scouts that do this for a living just rant and rave about Marvin Harrison Jr.
Because I'm thinking, I was thinking this actually earlier. Like if I'm after the Commanders brought Mariota, like if I'm the Commanders, Sam Howell was leading the league in passing yards at one point last season. Like give him another year. If I give him Marvin Harrison and Terry McLaurin on the outside, brought Eckler for receiving back, like that's some weapons. That's some maybe give this kid one more year. Like if they're like just done with them and they just lack belief. I mean that's another thing. Kind of force your hand there. But honestly, if I'm the Commanders Patriots, I'm definitely taking a look at Marvin Harrison Jr. for sure.
Yeah, that was honestly a thought I had too when I saw that Mariota signing. It kind of made me raise an eyebrow. I mean, unless they're planning on just getting rid of Howell for whatever means necessary. But like, it just seemed a little fishy to me. Maybe they are thinking about Harrison and just he's such a good prospect. We'll take him now, and maybe we'll get our QB later, and we'll figure it out. But
yeah, because worst case scenario, you're dog shit this year. You bring in Marvin Harrison next year. You take your quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, I guess one of the last big news to touch on, T. Higgins requested a trade.
Yeah.
You got any potential suitors for him, and like what do you think that impact will have on the Bengals?
I mean, I was hoping a lot he'd come to my Panthers, but now that we got Deontay Johnson, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I'm trying to, some teams like I've seen crazy mock trades. One was I'll just say just for the fun of it, it was T. Higgins to the Vikings for Jay Jettas, and like the Bengals gave up like a first round pick. I thought that was pretty funny.
I thought you were gonna say Chiefs.
No, I mean I just sneezed.
It just wouldn't happen just because the Bengals would never deal him there.
Oh. I'm like who kind of needs I think like maybe Chargers. Did they give him like?
I don't like if I'm the Bengals, I'm not trading him to a team that I might
Like,
have to beat in the playoffs. Like I'm
yeah,
probably sending him to the NFC.
yeah,
And to be honest, it is fun to speculate about like where he might go. I think the most realistic case is that he just stays and plays.
under the tag.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to kind of who would even be in the who needs desperate receiver help that be contending in the NFC.
What about like maybe a team like the Bears? I mean, they got lots of
Yeah,
assets. They could potentially make a move, and like I don't think the Bengals would be too worried about sending him to Chicago.
yeah.
And
Maybe
Higgins is
like
still young too, where like he can fit that timeline.
maybe like the Cardinals too, since they're losing Marquise Brown. I know they definitely want Marvin Harrison in the draft, but maybe even if you trade for T Higgins, like pair him up with Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, and just get an elite duo,
Yeah,
and you're basically the Bengals.
yeah. Uh, Not
Okay.
really. I guess that's kind of all the. There's not that many teams. I mean, Giants, but they kind of already
Yeah,
did
and it's
assets
just there's
for
so many wide receivers in this draft that I think teams
yeah,
aren't too like
yeah.
fussy on going out and
Because
getting a big price for one.
they're saying they want like at least a first round pick, and if I'm a team that's going to be dog shit for the next few years, I'm probably like, all right, put a second on one of these top prospects that are maybe fall, or kind of give my first round pick for T Higgins, and we don't really have a quarterback to match him with anyways. So I think it's going to be a tough deal to get done, especially now that probably one of the teams that would have paid up, being in the Panthers, are definitely out of the mix now too. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we'll move on at the end here. Just one quick team that we each like and dislike, like picking a team that we kind of haven't talked about yet. So, what team do you think have a good offseason?
for me, it's a team that did majority of its business today, making two of the bigger pickups. That being the Houston Texans getting Joe Mixon and Danielle Hunter, and they made a few other moves as well, addressing some depth positions on defense. But
Hmm.
I like this. I think their running game kind of was pretty poverty last year, with Singletary. And I think bringing in a good veteran like Mixon, and you also have Damian Pierce behind him, I think, that's going to be a much improved running game, and just kind of open up the field more for CJ Stroud, who, we saw how good he was last year. And also, Joe Mixon's a pretty solid receiving back, too. So I think it'll help him in that aspect. And on the other side, you're getting Danielle Hunter to put across from Will Anderson on the other
Yeah,
edge. They're hitting
exactly.
scary pass rush. And I think, an elite pass rush, can dictate games. You can win games by just constantly pressuring the quarterback. And I think having two really elite guys on the edge is just never going to be a bad thing. And I just really like the business they've done. And I just think they're a sneaky young team with some good veterans. And I just think the Texans are going to be another team. I think they're just going to be even better than they were last year.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Mixon deal. I think he's a bit of an upgrade over Singletary. I love the Danielle Hunter deal for them. I mean, like you said, him and Will Anderson is just going to be a lethal duo. Um, yeah, they're just a team on an upwards trajectory. Another team kind of on a upwards trajectory that I like their offseason is the Detroit Lions. They re-signed guard Graham Glasgow, 3 years, $20 million deal. Just keep some good players on that O line. They brought in edge rusher Marcus Davenport on a 1 year deal. His plays kind of declined a bit the last 2 years. He's had some injury problems, but it's just some depth to put on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson, and they desperately needed some help for him. So I like that move for them. And then they traded a third round pick to Tampa for cornerback Carlton Davis in 2-6. I think that's another great deal.
Yeah.
Last year, they struggled in the secondary. Their cornerbacks were weak. I think Carlton Davis is a really good corner, and I think he'll shine for them.
No, I agree. I mean, they, like we were kind of mentioned earlier, CJ Gardner Johnson went to the Eagles, so they lost another piece in the secondary, and to bring in Tampa's top corner, who's a very solid guy for not too high of a price, I think is a great move. And I just think the Lions just kind of are addressing the holes that they had in their team last year. So I definitely like what they've been doing.
Yeah. You got a team you don't like?
Yeah. Um, the team I just kind of I haven't been really liking their moves. I'm gonna go with is the Denver Broncos.
Ooh.
Me, I mean, they cut Justin Simmons, which, you know, I guess teams just love to save money, but I mean, he was kind of their best, besides Surtain, their best piece on their defense. So I don't really know if I agree with that. And they also kind of I think their big move was they traded Jerry Jeudy for kind of pennies on what they could have got. Like they were even saying, you know, they had offers for 3rd-round picks at the deadline last year, decided to hold on to them, and then you get a 5th and a 6th-round pick this year. It's hard to understand that. And also kind of the way the Broncos are going, looks like it's going to be a rebuilding. Looks like they're going to go like probably J.J. McCarthy or one of the non-top 3 guys in the draft at quarterback. So I don't really understand why you trade Jerry Jeudy at his lowest value when he's still a young receiver and your team young direction. So I just feel it would have made sense to hold on to him, you know, give your young quarterback some, you know, an option. And if his value goes up during the season, you can trade him at the deadline for probably more than what you got for him. So I just think they've made a few bad moves, and that's kind of why I'm not a fan of their offseason.
Yeah. That's pretty fair. Like, they don't really have a ton of weapons, so moving off a guy like Jeudy, I mean, they're pretty stuck now, but I think they are kind of embracing the tank, so
Yeah.
it might be a few rebuilding years for them. The team that I'd say whose offseason I didn't like, I think I would go with the Raiders. We touched on how they lost Jacobs, and they're saying they're gonna rock with Zamir White as their starting running back. I mean, I don't think that's a guy that I'm comfortable with as my RB1. Maybe they'll address it in the draft. We'll see.
Yeah.
They brought in Christian Wilkins on a 4-year, $110 million deal. Good player, a lot of money. I don't know how I feel about that. And then they bring in Gardner Minshew on a 2-year, $25 million deal. I hate that. Like, Gardner Minshew is not an elite quarterback. What are we doing?
No.
So now your quarterbacks are between him and Aiden O'Connell. I mean, like we said, go get a Fields, draft a QB in the draft. Like, you need a star QB. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are not cutting it. So for me, that's an offseason that I don't like.
I mean, I totally agree. Like, I think they started their offseason great by, you know, appointing Antonio Pierce, the head coach. I think that was the right decision. I think he kind of won the locker room over last year, but just how they didn't really address the quarterback, you know, situation. Like, it's basically just a slap in the face of Davante Adams and to Max Crosby. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to 2 years ago. They signed, you know, Chris Jones to a big contract, and they tried to bring in, you know, some more veteran guys on defensive end. Just didn't really work out, and they just kind of left some gaping holes on their offensive line and other positions. I just feel like that's kind of what they're doing here, bringing in Christian Wilkins. Like, yeah, great player, gave him a lot of money, and you still have your O-line's not that great. Your quarterback play is terrible. You just have a lot of holes in the
secondary's putrid.
It's just like and your division with Mahomes and Herbert. Like what do you?
Yeah.
Like,
not a good look.
Even go for a project like Trey Lance or Justin Fields. Like, why not? Like, what are you losing by like giving up a third round pick for a guy like Trey Lance or Fields, man? Like, I don't understand. Or like even Mac Jones would like,
to be honest, like, I think over Gardner Minshew, Gardner Minshew's could be better if my life was on the line for one game, but like, at least Mac Jones, he's got
young,
a little more
like,
potential.
yeah. Like,
anyways,
I just don't see where they're going. I feel like at this point, you know, just play the first few games out and then trade Davante Adams and Crosby for whatever you can get, and, you know, try to trade Wilkins next offseason. Like, I just think they're going to them and Denver are gonna have fun, you know, at the draft for the next few years because they won't be doing nothing else.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. So those are our thoughts on the free agency period so far. Still a couple little moves to be done here. So if anything crazy happens, we'll come back with some more thoughts.
Yes, sir.